Hi there, and welcome to our first episode of Getting Back to Being a Teacher. My name is Rusty May. Welcome to the School Tools TV studio, where I do 1-minute daily videos for teachers and kids around the country to help them connect more effectively in the classroom. And that's what this show is all about. Over the next 10 to 12 weeks, we're going to be sharing information with you about how to connect more effectively with the kids in your class, because we need to get back to being a teacher and doing the kinds of things that really have an impact on the kids in our care. Why do I call it getting back to being a teacher? Because for most of us, being a teacher these days really kind of sucks. Most of the things are out of our control. We have government and administrators who have forced a one-size-fits-all curriculum down our throats. We're blamed for everything from low test scores to student apathy. We don't have a lot of parent support, or we have parents who are too involved and are only interested in their own kids. Teacher stress levels are at record high, retention rates are at record low. And the problem is that we've gotten away from doing the kind of teaching that we wanted to do when we got into the profession in the first place. For me, the teacher who affected me was Rose Throkeld. She was my senior English teacher. And Miss Throkeld was amazing. She saw me in a way that I never saw myself, and she helped me to see myself that way and to realize that there was so much more that I could do and that I was a much better student than I thought I was. But I was a kid who came from a relatively normal upbringing, middle-class upbringing, and I wasn't afraid to connect effectively with the adults in my life going through school. I had a lot of really positive impacts from the teachers and coaches that I worked with throughout my K-12 experience, and most of you did as well. And that's the issue, and one of the things that we're going to talk about as we begin this show is the ability to attach effectively to adults is critical in the work that we're trying to accomplish. Because most of us are very effective in connecting with a lot of the kids in our classroom. But unfortunately, it's those kids that we don't connect with effectively that create those kinds of stressful relationships and create conflict and by off-task behaviors and so forth are the ones that are the hardest for us to deal with. And we need to learn how to connect with them because they're the ones who are taking all of our teachable time. They're the ones that are slowing down the work that we're trying to do around curriculum. And it's important that we understand why this is happening, and that's what we're going to talk about. When I got into the profession as a counselor, I thought that I could create relationships with kids through the work that I was doing with them individually, and that relationship would then transfer to the teacher in the classroom. But that wasn't happening. So I created my show and started doing professional development and teacher trainings around the kinds of skills that teachers needed to develop in order to be successful connecting with all the kids in their class. And again, what I was finding was that they were still being successful, and a lot of teachers were very successful at creating relationships because that's why teachers get into the profession in the first place. You ask any teacher, I'm good with kids. I'm good at connecting with kids. And yes, you are with the majority of the kids. But there still were some kids that they weren't effectively able to connect with. And so I started doing more research to figure out why. What we did first was that we did the acronym dance. We do the SST to get an IEP and a BIP and all these kinds of things, and we think that these are going to work. And then schools were going with school-wide programs like PBIS and RTI and restorative justice, and nowadays it's social emotional literacy and character education. I think as educators, we've identified that these are important issues. We know, all of us deep down inside, we know these are really critical issues for kids, that we understand at a very real level that relationship is absolutely essential for learning. David Brooks wrote an editorial in the New York Times in January of 2019. It was about his Princeton freshman class at Princeton. But what he was saying is that teaching, even at that level, at the college level, is not a brainless transfer of information from one being to another being. It's a relational thing, and especially in K-12 and even more so in K-6. If we're not able to connect with that kid and the kid's not able to connect with us and their peers and the work that they're doing in their school, they're not going to receive the information that we're trying to give them. It doesn't matter what we do. It doesn't matter how many class meetings we have, assemblies, hanging posters on the wall. All these different things that we do all around the country and around the world to try and give the kids the information that they need because they have blinders on. And that's what's really, really important for us to understand. Early childhood experiences create a barrier to relationship. And until we begin to deal with that barrier to relationship, all the hard work that we're doing for the kids in our care is falling on deaf ears. And I'm sure you've had that experience. I'm sure you're having that experience right now. It's November, and for most of us, the honeymoon's over. We're looking forward to the holidays. We're looking for a break. The off-task behaviors are starting to pick up. What happened? Well, the first few weeks of school, we focused specifically on relationships. We thought about relationships. We worked on relationships. We got to know every kid. We spent time finding out what they did over the summer or whatever it was to connect. And then it was time to get to work. It was curriculum time. And so we started moving away from those relational things, or we did little things every day to kind of keep it going at some level. And some of you still do, a pretty significant amount of relationship work. But unfortunately, there's a group of kids in your classroom, and usually it kind of falls along the lines of the RTI pyramid. You have 80 to 85% of kids who are working and are kind of moving along, who are attached to you and understand what they're doing and moving forward. And then we have that 10 to 15% of high needs kids who just simply aren't. And what happened to them is when you started moving into the curriculum, they hadn't attached to you yet. They hadn't attached to their peers. They hadn't attached to the work that they were doing or to the school. And so now they're feeling every single day that they walk into the classroom, they're feeling scared. They're getting more and more behind, and they don't want to be there. So why are they acting out? Because these are the strategies that they created early in childhood. And it's really important for all of us to understand what's going on here, and it has to do with attachment theory. See, most of what we've done in schools up until this point, starting in about the 1950s, was about behavioralism. It was the idea that behavior is based on the reward or the discipline that was associated to that particular behavior. So if you have a kid who's got an off-task behavior, you impose a discipline, the kid realizes they need to change that behavior in order to receive a reward. Unfortunately, what we needed to look at was the idea of attachment theory, because attachment theory talks about a kid's ability to learn from their mistakes. Attachment theory is the idea of how an infant attaches to their primary caregiver. And that attachment becomes the framework for how they attach with adults and other peers for the rest of their life, unless there's a serious change in their surroundings or an intervention and so forth. So the attachment theory is described as either secure or insecure. And I'm not going to give you a lesson about secure or insecure attachment. What I want you to understand is that insecurely attached kids are not going to be able to learn. Secure attachment is about the idea of two things for an infant: food and safety. The bottom of Maslow's pyramid: food and security from their primary caregiver. If their primary caregiver, for whatever reason, isn't providing that on a regular basis, and the child does not feel secure in the fact that they can trust that they're going to be fed and they're going to be safe, then that starts to create an environment of fear. And in that environment of fear, it's impossible to learn. So until we deal with that barrier to relationship, or we deal with that barrier to learning, these 10 to 15% of kids, and sometimes upwards of 30% of kids, sometimes even 50% of kids in our class, based on trauma and low socioeconomic situations, which we can talk about later, we have a large number of kids in our classroom who are simply incapable of receiving the information that we're trying to share with them. That's why it's not working. And until we understand that, and until we focus our attention on a daily basis on creating the kind of environment that they need to feel safe and connected, they're going to continue to act out. And that acting out is going to take up teachable time. It's going to slow our progress. It's going to take away from our results in the classroom. And it's going to create stress, anxiety, and it's going to create negative feelings between you and the child. And what's that do? That means that the relationship just gets worse, and it reinforces their feeling of insecurity around the ability to trust adults. It's not your fault. There's nothing that you're doing that's wrong. This is a problem that's coming into our classroom, and it's coming in for a number of reasons. As I said, insecure attachment can be caused by the primary caregiver. It can also be caused by trauma. These trauma-related classroom ideas that we've talked about, yes, those are important to be aware of, but it's also important to understand why it's causing problems, that PTSD response that's created by trauma creates a situation where a kid has a heightened level of stress when they walk into our classroom every day. And our ability to create a calm, soothing atmosphere for them to be able to exist in, and also to create a way of bifurcating their existence between school and home and helping them to understand that school is different. Until we're able to do that, the kid is going to be scared and constantly looking around. These high needs kids, I want to talk about the type of kid. Maybe you'll recognize some of these from your own classroom. There's 5 categories of high needs kids. There's the passive. The passive child is the one who really doesn't take any initiative. It doesn't really care. It's just kind of there. Really difficult to see, especially in a very young child, someone who looks like they've given up and they're only 6 or 7 years old. But this child is incredibly passive. They felt like that there wasn't anything that they could do to change their situation, and so they've kind of given up on it. You have the flip side of that, which is the incredibly aggressive kid. This is the kid who's easily frustrated, who feels like anything you say to them is in some way a threat, and they're constantly acting out and with you and with their peers. Then we have the attention problems, ADHD and other problems around that. And it's interesting to note that the correlation between ADHD and insecure attachment is around 80%. 80% of kids who are insecurely attached also display attention deficit problems. And that makes sense, right? If they're not secure in their relationship, they're going to be looking, where's the food coming from? Where's the adult that's going to keep me safe? And so they're not able to focus on what's right in front of them. And again, learning's not happening. We expect them, just sit down, pay attention, just learn. I'm an expert in delivering curriculum, and all you have to do is sit there and pay attention, and I'm going to give you everything you need. But the problem is that I can't sit here because I don't know where my next meal is coming from, and if something in the environment is scary to me, I don't know who's going to be there to protect me. Does that make sense? At a very deep level, it's important that you understand where we're coming from here, and again, to acknowledge in your heart of hearts that this is not your fault. You're great with kids. What you're doing is working for the majority of your kids. Unfortunately, we have more and more kids coming into our classroom who are coming in with problems that are outside of our control until we're given the tools we need to create the environment for them to be successful. And that's what we're going to do over the next 10 to 12 weeks. So be excited. Look forward to it. We'll be here every week talking to you about these tools. And again, it's not extra work for you. It's little things you can do. You can start right now. Go to my website, SchoolToolsTV.com. Take the 30-day free trial, my 1-minute daily videos. Start sharing them with your class. If the honeymoon's over, then bring something new in. Bring an exciting video in to start your day or end your day that talks about exactly what we're talking about here. And we'll create a conversation with your kids to help you get to know them better and to help you connect with them more effectively. So go to SchoolToolsTV.com, take the 30-day free trial. And remember, we're going to be here every week. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you do for the kids in your care. Thank you for being the boots on the ground every day. You are touching the future. You're making an amazing difference. Don't give up. We're going to make this. We're going to make this happen. Thanks for watching. I'll look forward to seeing you next time.